My name is Anna Siepert and I'm here live at Cambridge Assessment English in beautiful Cambridge. And today I'll be talking to you about the keyword transformation task in B2 First, C1 Advanced and C2 Proficiency. We are going to discuss what we test, how we mark it, and how you can approach it. Now, the keyword transformation task you can find in our reading and use of English paper. So this is what I'll be talking to you about today. But before we start, I would love to see who is here with us today. So if you could put in the comments box where you're watching from. And if you're watching by yourself or if you're a teacher who's watching with their class, we would love to see that. So if you could just tell us where you're watching from, we would love to see that today. I have my colleague Sarah here with me. She is not on camera. Yeah, there she is. She's monitoring comments for us. And if you have any questions during the session, you can put them in the comments box right now or as they come up, and we will deal with them at the end of the session. So Sarah, can you see who's here, who's joining us today?
Yes, we have Larissa from Greece.
Larissa from Greece, hi. Thanks for joining us.
Pasha from India.
Pasha from India, nice to see you.
Prakash from India.
India again, Prakash, I think the name was.
Yep, Prakash and Prashant, actually.
And Prashant, okay, two people watching.
Yep, we've got someone in Melbourne.
Melbourne, wow, hi.
And Rio, Brazil.
Brazil, nice to see you.
Cambodia.
Cambodia, okay, this is interesting already.
Do you want to tell us what we're doing today?
Yes. So today we're going to talk about one specific task in the reading and use of English paper, and that is the keyword transformation task. This task is in B2 First, C1 Advanced and C2 Proficiency exams. And we're going to talk about what we test, how we mark it, and how you can approach it. Now, my name's Anna Siepert. I'm here at Cambridge English Assessment, and I'll be talking to you about the keyword transformation task today. I've got my colleague Sarah with me. She is off screen. She's next to me monitoring comments, and she will answer your questions as you post them and also collate them. So at the end, we can have a little Q&A, which is a question and answer session, if you have any further queries about the keyword transformation task. Now, all the examples we're looking at today are taken from the B2 First sample paper. You can find that on our website. But all the examples that we're talking through, all the tips I'm giving will, of course, be useful for the C1 Advanced exam and the C2 Proficiency exam as well. They'll just are at a higher level. But the tips will be useful for all three papers. Now, should we get started, Sarah? Yeah, all right. In the keyword transformation task, we are testing both vocabulary and grammar. So why don't we start by looking at an example? As I said, this example is from our B2 First exam. I'm really sorry, Sarah, I can't see it. Okay, sorry. And all the examples we're looking at today are from the B2 First exam. Sorry about that. So here's our first example. I'd prefer not to cancel the meeting. And then we have the word call. And then it says, I'd rather blank the meeting. Okay, so what do you have to do here? Well, the task is that you must use the word call, which is the keyword in capital letters, to complete the second sentence. And you have to make sure that the second sentence has a very, very similar meaning to the first sentence. Now, if you want to, you can already put your suggestions of how to complete this example in the comments box. But if you're not quite ready yet, let's look at the question in a little bit more detail. So if we look at the gap, we can see that the idea that is missing from the second sentence is the word cancel. Okay, so we have I'd rather and we have the meeting, but we haven't got the idea of cancel. Now, we have the word call. So to me, this looks like a fairly straightforward vocabulary test. Okay, if you know your phrasal verbs, you hopefully have already realized that call off is a phrasal verb that means the same as cancel. So how about we put call off in the gap? So let's read out those sentences again. I'd prefer not to cancel the meeting. I'd rather call off the meeting. Now, do those two sentences have the same meaning? I prefer not to cancel the meeting. I'd rather call off the meeting. No, they don't. They don't have the same meaning because in the first sentence, we have not to cancel the meeting. Okay, so we need to express that idea of not to in the second sentence as well. So how about I'd prefer not to cancel the meeting. I'd rather not to call off the meeting. How about that? Well, actually, that's not correct either because I'd prefer is followed by to plus infinitive and I'd rather is followed by the bare infinitive. Okay, so we've got those rules up on the screen now. I'd prefer plus not, if necessary, to infinitive, or I'd rather not infinitive. So what is the correct answer? The correct answer is I'd rather not call off the meeting. Or another correct answer would be I'd rather you didn't call off the meeting, or I'd rather we didn't call off the meeting. Okay, all these options would be correct. So the first point you have to remember when answering the keyword transformation task is that you have to paraphrase the whole idea that is missing. Okay, you can see from this example immediately that we have two testing focuses here. We test vocabulary and we test grammar. So in this example is the vocabulary was we test the similar meaning of the phrasal verb call off and a standard verb, which was cancel. And we tested the grammar of the patterns that follow I'd rather and I'd prefer. Okay, so there were two things. Now, in the keyword transformation task, usually there will be several testing focuses in one question. Okay, so it's great if you spotted cancel and call off, but don't stop there. Okay, have another look. Make sure that you also spot other bits that might be tested and that you don't leave anything off. Now, let's look at another example. Okay, the next example is, do you know when the match starts, Sally? Asked Mary. The keyword is if, and the gap sentence is, Mary asked Sally, time the match started. Now, don't tell me what you think the answer is. What do you think the testing focus is here? Can you type that in the comments box, please? What do you think the testing focus is in this example? Now, Sarah, have we got some people answering this for us, giving us some suggestions for the testing focus?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Have another look. So I'll give you a hint. In the first sentence, we have a statement that is in inverted commas. And in the second sentence, we don't. Does that give you a little clue? So, do you know when the match starts, Sally? Asked Mary. If is the keyword. Mary asked Sally, time the match started.
We have an answer.
Yeah.
We have a couple of answers. We have when the match is.
Oh, but do we have any ideas of what the testing focus is? Grammar. Yeah, grammar is correct. Do you have a little bit?
And time.
Time, yes. Okay, we're getting there. Any other ideas?
Word order.
That is very true. That is very true. Word order, in case you didn't hear that. So we have suggestions that say we're testing grammar, we're testing word order, we're testing time. Yes.
Reported speech.
Yes, there we go. Reported speech. Whoever said that, congratulations. That's correct. The testing focus is reported or indirect speech. The first sentence is indirect speech, and the second one needs to be paraphrased as indirect or reported speech.
Yep, we have a few more people who have picked that up.
Brilliant, brilliant. Oh, I'm glad you spotted that. And that's actually quite a common thing in the B2 first paper. Reported speech is not uncommon in the keyword transformation. And we do need to use the keyword if. Let's not forget that. So shall we give it a go? Should we have a look? Yeah, there it is. The testing focus, indirect speech, which is the same as reported speech. Okay. Let's give it a go and see how we can transform that. So the bit of, do you know when the match starts, Sally? Asked Mary. Mary asked Sally if she knew time the match started. Okay. Now, if you have no idea why we've just changed do you know to if she knew, I encourage you to look this up at the Cambridge Online Dictionary. In the grammar section, there is a link on reported speech, and it explains beautifully which changes you have to make. Sarah is putting up the link for you. So if you are watching and you're really not sure why we've just made that change of do you know to if she knew, please look up the rules around reported speech. Now, let's read the sentences again. Do you know when the match starts, Sally? Asked Mary. Mary asked Sally if she knew time the match started. Okay, so this is clearly not correct yet. Okay, we're getting there. Now, in the first sentence, we have the word when, okay? Do you know when the match starts? And in the second sentence, we have the word time that we didn't have there before. So how can we express this idea of when and time? If you want to, why don't you type in your suggestions and we see if any of you get that right. So do you know when the match starts, Sally? Mary asked Sally if she knew. Do we have any correct answers?
Isn't it if she knew the time?
Mary asked Sally if she knew the time the match started. Well, no, it's not quite the answer I'm looking for.
Missing word there. Simple present changes to simple past.
Yeah. Well, the correct answer we're looking for is, do you know when the match starts, Sally? Asked Mary. Mary asked Sally if she knew what time the match started. What time? We need the question word there.
Yep, we have a few answering that just as you said.
Just as I said it, you got it too. Okay, brilliant. Well done. Okay, so once again, you see the question, you realize, oh, we have inverted commas in the first bit and not in the second. And we have the keyword if. I've got to do reported speech. So you know how to shift the tenses and you know all the rules. Make sure that you finish looking and completely finish the sentence and don't leave out a little word like what, which makes all the difference here. Okay. Now, let's have a look. Do we have any other options that might be possible? How about this one? Do you know when the match starts? Mary asked Sally if she had any idea what time the match started. Well, what do you think? I mean, I think it's a nice sentence, okay? It expresses the same idea, it's correct, but there is a problem. Okay, let's have a look what the problem is. Here are the instructions that you are given for the keyword transformation task. And I know I'm being mean because I didn't tell you those instructions right at the beginning, okay? The instructions are: complete the second sentence so that it has a similar meaning to the first sentence using the word given. Do not change the word given. You must use between 2 and 5 words, including the word given. Okay, so what is the problem? The problem is in the suggested answer that I gave here. If she had any idea what, we have too many words. Okay, so there will be occasions where you might be able to come up with a correct answer, but it won't be correct because of the word count. Okay, so it's really, really important to stick to the word count. To be honest, in this example, we also change the meaning a little bit more than we have to, okay? To say, to have any idea is not exactly the same as saying if she knew, which is much closer to the original meaning. So you want to stay as close to the original sentence as possible, and you want to have a grammatically correct answer, and you want to have that answer in 2 to 5 words. And I'm sure you're going to ask me this, contractions count as two words. So didn't or hadn't or won't will count as two words. Okay. Now, so here we have the reminder on the screen. You must use between 2 and 5 words, including the word given. Yes, and this is important. The word that you're given counts towards the 2 and 5 words. Sometimes students get confused about that. Now, before we move on, hello everyone who's just joining us. My name's Anna Siepert and I'm here in beautiful Cambridge at Cambridge Assessment English. I've got my colleague Sarah here with me. She is off screen monitoring your questions and answering as they come in. She's also keeping a note of questions that we can answer at the end of the session. Now, today we're talking about the keyword transformation task. That, of course, is a task that you find in the Reading and Use of English paper of our B2 First, C1 Advanced, and C2 Proficiency exams. And we are using examples in this session from our B2 First exam, but all the examples and the tips that we're giving are useful for all other exams too. So if you are attempting to do C1 or C2, we hope you stay with us and you keep watching because the tips I'm giving you will be useful. So remember to read the instructions carefully and follow them exactly. Now, so far we've looked at how you need to paraphrase the idea that is missing, the whole idea that is missing, and how it's important to stick to the word count that's still up on the screen. Now, let's move on to our next example. For this next example, I've given you 2 options. Why don't you tell me in the comment box which one you prefer, A or B? I'm going to read it out for you. It hasn't taken Sam long to learn Spanish. Picked. Sam A is picking up Spanish very quickly, or Sam B has picked up Spanish very quickly. Now, type in A or B. What do you think is the correct option here? Look, I'm nice to you. I'm giving you options. You don't even have to type in the whole answer. It hasn't taken Sam long to learn Spanish. Picked. Sam A is picking up Spanish very quickly, or Sam B has picked up Spanish very quickly. Now, Sarah is looking at the answers, and I'm hoping we're having some coming in.
Yep, we have
what are people saying?
Of B's. We have 3 B's, 2 A's, 4 B's.
4 B's and 2 A's.
Yep.
So far.
So far it's pretty even. We've got 5 B's now and 3 A's.
Okay, B is inching ahead. Has picked up. Okay. All of you who picked B, very well done. B is the correct answer. Now, why is it the correct answer? You must not change the key word. Let's have a look back at the example.
We seem to be missing a slide.
Oh, sorry. Well, if you go back to the previous one, we can look at the keyword is picked. Okay, it is not picking. So I agree. In this sentence, actually, A is pretty close in meaning, but if you chose A, you have changed the keyword from picked to picking, and that's not allowed. Okay. In the keyword transformation, in the key sentence transformation task, you do not change the key word ever. Okay. If you change the key word, your answer will be wrong. That's the one thing I can promise you. So don't ever change it, okay? Always think of a way of how to answer the sentence without changing that word. So if it's already in the simple past here or the past participle ed, you need to leave it like that, okay? If it's a word that is in plural with an s at the end, leave it like that, okay? So always use the keyword exactly as it's on the exam paper. That's an easy one to remember, right? So please do that. Now, let's look at our final example. Just to remind you quickly, all of our examples are from the B2 First exam, but they are, of course, useful for C1 Advanced and C2 Proficiency. Now, here's our next example, which is John was in favor of visiting the museum. the key word is idea. And then the gap sentence is John thought it was to the museum. Now, I'll give you a minute. Look at the question and post your answer in a comment. And think about the word count and think about not changing the key word. Right, so I'm going to give you just a second to write down your answers, and I'm going to see, I'm getting a different screen, so sorry if I'm not looking at the camera anymore. I just want to see what questions, what answers are coming in, what answer options are coming in. A good idea to go. Okay. A good idea, a good, a great. Okay. A good ideas to go, a good idea to go. Okay. A lot of you are getting there. Some of you put a good idea. But the ones who put a good idea to go to the museum, you're right, okay? This is a very simple mistake I think a lot of you might make. You need to realize that it's not just in favor of that you need to paraphrase. Also, visiting is not there anymore, okay? So John thought it was a good idea to go to the museum. Why can't you say a good idea to visit to the museum? Because we don't say visit to, okay? We say visit, direct object, or to go to the museum. So again, this is clearly one of those questions where we're testing a couple of things all at the same time. Now, well done to all of you who got that right. And I know in the exam you have more time to think about your answer. So if you got it wrong, please don't worry about it. You're just on Facebook typing in a few words. I'm sure in the exam you will take more care and pay really, really careful attention. I would like to show you with this example how we mark this question. Okay, you can get 2 points for each question in the sentence transformation. In this particular example, you would get a point for a good idea, and you would get 1 mark for to go. Okay. The way we divide it up is there's always a part that contains the key word, and you will get 1 mark for that if you get it correctly. And then you get 1 mark if you get the rest of that answer correct as well. So if you wrote down, John thought it was a good idea to the museum, you would still get 1 mark. Okay, so all of you who wrote that down, and there were a few of you, you would still get 1 mark. If you wrote, John thought it was a good idea to go to the museum, you would get 2 marks. So why is this important for you to know? Well, because I really want to encourage you to write something down. Okay, even if you don't get it 100% correct, there is a chance that you will get 1 mark. Okay, even if you don't get 2 marks. So give it a go and try it. And sometimes students ask me, well, why? Why do you mark it that way? Well, because we think language is all about communication. And in real life, you might say something and you might make a little mistake, but people still understand you. And we want to give you credit for that. Okay, we want to give you points for that. So if you're managing to express half the idea, we will give you half the point, which I think is very nice. So I hope you like that too. So my top tip here is you should always try to answer the question. Don't leave it blank, okay? That's the one way you will get 0 points is if you don't write anything down, okay? So try and give it a go, and you might you might be lucky and get a point. So let's summarize what we've discussed today. We've talked about the keyword transformation task. And in the task, you must paraphrase the idea that is missing. Remember that we test both vocabulary and grammar. Keep to the word count. That's very important. Not change the keyword. And give the answer even if you are not sure. Now, if you have any further questions about this task that we've talked about today. If anything was unclear or you want more information, please put your questions in the comments box and I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I know that Sarah has been looking at your comments and maybe she's already got a couple of questions for me that I can deal with. I will try my best. Okay. So thanks very much, everybody, for taking part. And I hope you found it helpful for when you attempt the task. Now, Sarah, do you want to join me on the screen?
I'll join you on your screen. And pardon me if I'm sort of looking down because I'm going to be looking at your comments that have come in.
Okay, great.
One of the questions that did come in was when we were doing the bits about whether it was a good idea, and the questions were, what if we said, what a great idea? Would that still be correct?
Was in favor of visiting?
Yes.
Possibly. Possibly. Okay. The answer is possibly. In favor of, I feel, is not as strong as a great idea. Okay. Really the idea there more is it's a good idea. Okay. It's not a particularly, I think in order to say great, it might have said John was hugely in favor. Okay. Having said that, the examiners do look at all the questions carefully, and all the questions are tested and trialed carefully. So if we feel that a particular question, actually a lot of people answer it in that way and it's very, very similar, we will still give you a point. Okay, so, but that really depends from, from session to session, and the examiners will make those decisions. We want to be fair to you. So for this particular question, I can't answer it. I don't want to answer it because I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I also don't want you, I know it's very frustrating when you do sample papers and you want to know, but would I get a point or would I not get a point? I understand that. But I would just really ask your teacher for their advice on how close it is. And I would encourage you to really, really try and stay as closely to the original sentence as you can. The further away you go, the more likely it is that you might make a mistake.
Interestingly enough, we don't actually have quite a lot of questions at this time.
Okay.
But here's quite a technical one. What if instead of a phrasal verb, the candidate uses a proper verb with the same meaning? Would it be correct? But I guess that's what we just discussed.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yes, absolutely. It's not, we don't just test proper verb, phrasal verb. We test verbs that have very similar meanings. The phrasal verbs are just one aspect. So just one of the examples I showed you looked at phrasal verbs. It always is, there isn't a magic formula. Okay. There isn't a, if you see a proper verb, it will definitely be a phrasal verb. No, absolutely not. Or if you see a phrasal verb, you definitely have to change it to a proper verb. No, you have to change the second sentence so it has a very, very similar meaning to the first sentence. And sometimes you do that by replacing a proper verb with a phrasal verb, but not always. No.
Okay, I'm just gonna do this. Right, so if you have any particular questions about the keyword transformation task in the use of English paper, now would be a good time to put those questions on there. We won't actually be going into the nitty-gritty, but if you have any sort of general questions about the use of English paper, we'll be happy to answer those. If you've only just joined us, don't worry. This whole thing will be available on our Facebook page for you to watch it again. It's all pre-recorded with the slides and everything else. I've posted a link up to one of our sample papers, and from that link you'd be able to get to other sample papers if you're doing a different exam. So I think that's pretty much it. Maybe we can run through the summary again.
Yes, absolutely. Let me just have a quick look. So in the transformation task, you must paraphrase the idea that is missing. I'm
afraid that there is something words missing there.
You must remember that we test both vocabulary and grammar. that's the both bit. You have to keep to the word count. You should never, ever change the keyword. And please give an answer. Don't leave it blank, even if you don't know for sure what the answer is, okay? I think those are the best strategies for doing well in this particular task, okay? So paraphrase the idea that is missing. Remember that we test both vocabulary and grammar. Keep to the word count, not change the keyword, and give an answer.
Even if you're not sure.
Even if you're not sure, exactly. Now, I encourage you to check out the sample papers. Sarah has put up the link. If you weren't sure about the task that we discussed that talked about reported or indirect speech, we've given you a link where you can look up further information there. That particular link is in general to the Cambridge University Press online dictionary, which also has a really, really useful grammar section. So if you ever have any sort of grammar queries, you can type them in there and get lots of reference materials for free. Very, very useful, written for students, not for teachers. So hopefully very accessible to all of you. And unless we have another question, I think.
Yes, we do.
We do. Oh, we do have another question. All right.
Okay. So.
Yeah. Ahmed, what is the difference between will and going to express future, I assume? Now, I would encourage you to do what I've just said. Go to the Cambridge University Press online dictionary. Sarah has put the link up. Yeah, yes. She's just posted it again. She put the link up. Now, she put the link up for reported speech, but if you put in will versus going to or future forms, it will give you a fantastic explanation with examples that you can read through in your own time. And you can find out more about this particular grammar point. And that goes for all of you out there who go, oh, I'm not really sure about this tense or how articles work. Go to this resource, which is completely free, really fantastic, and type in your the area that you're interested in, and it will give you a good answer.
There is another question. Is there a list with the words or phrases that usually appear in the exam, like call off in your example?
No, there isn't. There isn't a list. The reason is that these are exams at a fairly high level. So we assume that students know a broad range. Now, what I would say is, so that, you know, I know we have lists for our key exam and for our preliminary exam. And from first upwards, we don't provide lists anymore because the range of language is too broad at this stage. I would say it is fairly typical to see questions that relate to phrasal verbs and verbs, tenses. As I said, particularly for first, often there's something that relates to reported speech, words that have very similar meanings, word order can be tested, and that is often tested in relation to patterns after certain words. So things like where we looked at I'd prefer versus I'd rather, and the pattern of grammar that follows after that. So those types of things are often tested. Patterns after verbs, patterns after certain nouns, those kind of things we test a lot. But it's very, very broad. And, you know, I'm not denying it. It's difficult, but I know you can do it.
Well, we have some interesting questions here.
Yeah.
Should the answers be written in capital letters?
Okay. Sorry, because we did that in our example just to highlight. You can write them in capital letters if you want to, or you can just write them in lowercase. It doesn't matter as long as we can read it. It's,
okay.
You know.
We have, here's...
I'm wondering if there's
that's the list.
Yeah.
Is part one still part of reading?
Do you mean part one in the use of English paper of B2? I'm pretty sure it is. I'm just having a quick look. I've got my handbook here just to double check. I mean, they aren't in the same paper now, yeah? You realize this, I think. They are combined now. Let me just find the right section here. In the B.
Ah, yes, it is there.
Yeah, it's the multiple choice close, okay? Which you get 1 mark for each question, where you have to choose, the correct options.
Okay.
Do we have anything else? Thank you very much.
We have an example here. He gets his audiences laughing uncomfortably with his funny jokes.
His jokes are... I'm not sure where this example is from. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for your questions.
Oh, we do have one
question.
Oh,
one more. Are abbreviations marked as wrong? Yes, please don't use abbreviations in this part of the test. I think the only exceptions are probably something like AM or PM, and that would probably be in the original sentence as well. This is not a part where we test abbreviations, so typically you shouldn't really even have to deal with it. But don't abbreviate any other words, okay? If January is part of the gap that you have to write out, you have to write out January. You can't just put Jan or something like that. So,
okay.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Always, it's an English test. So we're checking your spelling. We're checking your, if you know the full word. Abbreviations are not tested. So I don't think you should even come across anything like that. But if you did, please write it out in full. Okay.
This one's an interesting one.
Okay. That is quite interesting. Is Cambridge flexible when you, for example, do not include the proper name of a person and change it for a he? Okay. Again, I don't think it's very common that would even happen. If you look at the sentence in isolation, would it still have the same meaning if in the first sentence it says Mr. Smith and in the second sentence it says he? Now, I don't think it does, okay, because we don't know who he is when we look at the second sentence. So please keep the meaning as close as possible to the first sentence. Again, I don't think it is something that will come up very often. But yeah, that's the best advice I can give. Keep it as close. Think about if you only saw the second sentence and you didn't see the first sentence, would it still be the same meaning? Or would you not be able to understand it without knowing the first sentence? That's a good tip. That's how we think about it. What if I don't understand the meaning? How can I recognize the keyword? Well, if you don't understand the meaning, then you can't recognize the keyword. Okay, then it's not the right level for you. Okay, you need to understand the first sentence in order to be able to complete the second sentence. If you can't, if it's too difficult, skip to the next question, I would say. If you really have trouble with a lot of those, I would say you're not at the right level yet. You need to take more English classes, give yourself a little bit more time, spend a few more months practicing your English before you try. There's no shame in that. It takes us all a long time to learn a new language.
Okay, we'll answer 2 more questions and then we'll have to go.
Okay, 2 more questions. People want
schedule for the next live session on C1, C2 levels. That's not a question. That's a good suggestion.
Okay, that's a suggestion. Sarah will deal with that. Is correction for the test made by human by a robot? Well, yes. We look at all the handwriting.
Yes.
Anything that is handwritten is looked at by human eyes.
Human eyes, yes.
Human eyes,
definitely.
And so yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Don't worry about that. And even in those questions where not this task, but when there's like a multiple choice and you have to color in, if anything is unclear, the machine spits it out.
Yes,
so a human looks
yeah.
at it. Yeah. If there's ever any sort of doubt, a human will look at it. So
okay, that's a very detailed question.
Oh, no, I think I'll leave that. Okay. I don't think we have, I'm really sorry, but Bieto Kazan. I don't think we'll have time to deal with that right now. So that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for all your questions, and thanks for watching us today.
Yes, don't worry if you didn't miss, if you missed any of it, because it will be on our Facebook page for you to watch at your leisure whenever you want.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you for joining us today, and watch out for our next session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.